Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Dr. Kyle Explains, your YouTube channel where we go through GCSE science content quickly and easily. Today we're going to be going through a required practical, the titration method. Now this is for triple only pupils, so if you're studying for the trilogy or the synergy version of this exam, please give the video a thumbs up, but you can move on to the next video. So without further ado, grab a pen, grab a paper, and let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so some key info then. So a titration is used to find out the unknown concentration of a solution, usually when you're reacting an acid or an alkali together. So the volumes of acid or alkali that react with each other can be measured by titration using a suitable indicator, such as phenolphthalein or methyl orange. Now, for this required practical, you're also going to need to know how to calculate the concentrations in a titration calculation. Now, this will be done in another video that will be separate to this. Okay, so some titration equipment then. So on here, we have got a burette just over here. And a burette is used to measure a variable volume. So what that means is you have lots of these different measurements here all the way up. So you could use a burette to measure 10 centimeters cubed or 12 centimeters cubed or 13.5 centimeters cubed, generally all the way up to 50 centimeters cubed, but it can measure any of those volumes. Now over here we have a pipette. Now a pipette can only measure a fixed volume. Now you can get different size pipettes, but essentially if you have a 10 centimeter cubed glass pipette, it can only measure 10 centimeters cubed and that's it. You get a 25 centimeter cubed pipette, it can only measure 25 centimeter cubed and that's it. And what you would do is you normally have a pipette filler here, you put it in the solution and you just suck it up and there's a kind of like a line. You might just be able to make it out just there where you fill up your liquid to, and then that will be exactly the volume of whatever that pipette measures. And then lastly, you've got obviously your conical flask just here, and then you use an indicator. So in this instance, it's a phenolphthalein, and it's used to detect when the reaction has been neutralized. Okay, so here's the method then. Now, a titration required practical could be asked in different ways. So it could just be to say what the method is, or it could ask you to kind of figure out if an acid is more or less concentrated. And that's kind of the one we're going to do today. So describe how a titration can be used to find out whether acid X or Y is more concentrated. So first of all then, what we're going to do. So we were going to fill a burette with acid X. That's going to be that one there. Cool, lovely. Got a little bit stuck there myself. So fill a burette with acid X. Then we're going to use a pipette to measure out 25 centimeters cubed of alkali. Say let's something like sodium hydroxide or something. Okay, alkali. So brackets NaOH, for example. So you've got your pipette filled with your alkali and you've got your burette filled with acid. So we're going to place the alkali in the conical flask and add indicator phenolphthalein. Make sure you understand that word, phenolphthalein. That's an indicator. Good to get a good try of the spelling for your exams. So you've added the indicator phenolphthalein. Okay, so then what we're going to do. So what we're going to do then is we're going to slowly add acid X via burette whilst swirling the conical flask until the indicator turns pink to colourless. Okay, lovely stuff. And so what you're doing there is you're essentially seeing that the acid has now been neutralised, and it's now a neutral colour, and so the indicator phenolphthalein will turn from pink to colourless. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to repeat experiment or method until you get concordant results. So they're within 0.1 of each other. And so that means you are absolutely sure at what volume acid X is going to neutralize the alkali. So now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat method using acid Y. And then you then need to identify which acid is going to be the more concentrated. So the more concentrated acid is going to neutralize your alkali faster. So therefore it's going to require less volume to use. And so therefore you could then figure out which is the more concentrated acid. So the more concentrated acid will require less volume to neutralize the alkali and change the color of indicator. Lovely stuff. Okay, now you could maybe put in a little bit of information there as well if you wanted to. You could use M equals C times V. So then you would rearrange that as go C equals M over V, and you could figure out the actual concentration if you've actually got some numerical data for this as well. But do we see essentially what you're doing is the acid always goes in the burette. The alkali is going to be going into your conical flask, or whatever you're putting in your conical flask, you use your pipette for. You then add your indicator. If you're adding your indicator, always say what color it's going to be going from and to. If they ask you a different indicator in the exam, just make sure you're talking about that indicator. And then in order to find out which acid is actually the more concentrated one, you need to say you're going to repeat it with the different acid and then explain that the more concentrated acid will require less volume to neutralize the alkali. Lovely stuff. All right, so thank you very much for watching. Please do go through my playlist for more GCSE Science help. And remember, if you need any help with your GCSE Science, Dr. Kyle explains.